Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Happy Life with Maria podcast. Today's episode is inspired by an interesting series of events I had in my life the last few weeks, which I thought might be helpful to others. So, the point of today's episode is how to stop being the hero to everyone in your life. Now, what do I mean by hero? Apparently, there is this concept of acting like the hero, let's say at work. Every time there's a situation, they know to come to you because you're going to give them an answer. You're going to solve the problem. And same thing with like a family member. Every time they have a situation, they know they could come to you and you're going to give them an answer. You're going to solve the problem. So that's hero mode, where you try to do everything yourself. The opposite of that is, before we get to the opposite, the problem with that is, as I just learned from Gemini AI, is you're robbing people of being able to make their own solutions to the problems, and you are teaching them to be dependent on you, which I didn't realize that's what I was doing. Yeah, so Gemini AI, thanks Gemini, mentioned that when you constantly come in and save the day and come in and save the day, give the solution, do your own research and give them the answers, they become incapable of doing their own research, incapable of getting their own answers, and they start depending on you. So to stop that, first realize, rewire your mindset that the more you help everybody with things that technically they should be able to do themselves, the more you rob them of their own skill set, right? And maybe it makes you feel better for a second playing the hero, but you are making them dependent on you and you're robbing them of learning their own survival skill set, or whatever you call it, skill set. So step number one is knowing that you're not responsible to solve everyone's little issues and problems. It's not your responsibility. Even at work, right? You can delegate. You know what's your role, what's not your role. If you don't know, you say you don't know. Same thing with family members, right? You're not responsible to fix everyone else's issues. There's always an issue with everyone, even with yourself, but who's helping you, right? So know that it's not your responsibility to fix everyone's issues. You can say no. You can say, I don't know. And actually, you are benefiting. The others will benefit from you saying, I don't know, because it will force them to seek the answer themselves. It will teach them to learn the skill of doing their own research, figuring out their own problems, right? And depend on themselves instead of depending on you. Right? You shift the script to the healthier way of living, which is adults should be solving their own adult problems, right? You as an adult solve your own problems, so why would you have to constantly step in and solve other adult problems, right? They should have a skill set of their own, which only happens if you step back. Don't let them depend on you every second, right? They're adults. Remember that. So the slow 3-step process to shift from being the hero to giving them their own opportunity to solve their own problems is number one, the mindset, like I mentioned. No, you don't have to feel guilty for saying no. It's not your responsibility, even if it's at work. You only do what you are required to do. Everything else you say, I don't have time, I don't know, what do you think? Right? So for step 2 is you flip it back to them. I don't really have the answer, but what do you think? What do you suggest? Right? I'm not really sure. I haven't been in this situation. What do you think? What do you suggest? Right? Do the little circle around. First, you hear them, but then you say, I don't really have the answer. I don't really have time. I don't really know. I never had the situation. But what do you think? What would you do if you didn't have somebody to help you, right? What other resource would you use? Would you go to ChatGPT, Gemini? Would you go to a Google Translate if you don't know a word in another language? Would you ask your neighbor? Would you ask a coworker? Would you, do all these other research steps, right? Encourage them to look for the answer elsewhere. Look for the answer by doing their own research, making their own decisions. And that way they stop depending on you. Now, the third step is practice. Practice, practice, practice. Because they have come so used to running to you for help, it will take a little bit of time, maybe 20, 30 days if you do it regularly, for them to learn, oh, she will actually say no, and what do I think? Oh, she will actually say she doesn't know, and what do I do about it? And they will learn, the more you say, no, I don't know, no, I don't have that answer, no, I've never had the situation, what do you think? The more their brain learns, oh, actually, they may not have the answer for me. I have to figure out another route to get an answer. So they will learn little by little to stop depending on you automatically, because they will see you're not providing them any answers, right? The most important thing is do not solve the problem. Whatever you do for the next 30 days, if it's like an everyday thing, or 60 days, if it's like every other day thing, whatever you do, do not solve their problem for them at all. All you're allowed to say is, unfortunately, I don't have the answer. I don't really know. I haven't had that situation. What do you think? What would you do if you didn't have me to ask this? Who else could you ask? Right? Never, ever, ever supply the actual response, because then they'll be used to, oh, eventually she will give it to me, so I have to ask her again. No, no answer. Let them figure it out and encourage them to rely on their own strength, right? It encourages them to build confidence themselves. They become their own hero. And you are the hero of you, because the only solving you should be doing is of your own adult issues, all your own adult problems, because you're an adult, as they are they, right? You solve your own problems. Why can't they? Same kind of thing. So hopefully you found this episode useful. I encourage everybody that feels they're doing too much and playing the hero in all their areas of their life, stop. And no, you're not required to, because they're adults. They can figure out things for themselves. And shift slowly and slowly into transforming your answers back to them. Do not give them the answer, but transform it back to them. Be like, what do you think? And what would you do if I wasn't available? Who would you ask if I wasn't available? And start training them to start relying on themselves. And that's the story. Talk positive. Stay positive. Talk soon.